What's up, guys? We are back again. Hasn't been too long. The truck is in the exact same condition as it was at the end of the last video. I haven't done anything to it yet. Part of the reason was because I knew this stuff was showing up and I was kind of anxious. It's for the most part cosmetic, but kind of functional at the same time. Remember how we talked about in the last video, the steering wheel is the highest thing in my vision right now. So I ordered a smaller steering wheel. I've never bought a steering wheel setup, adapter, and quick release type stuff before. So I didn't really, I'm no steering wheel snob or anything like that, and I don't really use it all that much as long as it holds the button pretty good and is easy to grip while trying to keep it straight. That's good enough for me. So I went ahead and just bought NRG stuff. Wanted to make sure that everything fit. There were some steering wheels that I wanted, but I wasn't sure if the bolt pattern was going to be exactly the same. So I just went with everything from the same brand. And that stuff showed up today. So we got some goodies. So I already took the other ones out. They were in their individual boxes. So it actually, it seems pretty nice. There's nothing that seems super Chinese and light and crappy. So, I'm anxious to see how it works. I didn't know whether this was considered, you do a search for steering wheels and this brand pops up like immediately. But I didn't know if it was any good. So, we're gonna find out, I guess. So this is the adapter. I was told that the spline type and everything is the same as 240s. So this is for NS13 240. I hope it works. I hope they're right. Unless the interweb failed me. And this is the steering wheel itself. As basic as it can be. I tried to get something without a crazy dish because I didn't want it to, I didn't know how much the adapter and the quick release part was going to add to the length. So, I didn't want the steering wheel like right in my face or something. But yeah, it feels good. It doesn't feel crazy cheap or anything like it's gonna fall apart immediately. And I don't think I'll be putting a whole lot of strain on it. It's a little bit far for me to reach, like if I put a button right there, but I think it's still doable. I didn't want to have to drill into here, and I didn't like any of the steering wheels that came with buttons already. They seemed like really cheap buttons, and I've already had problems with buttons sticking, failing on me. So I just figured I would get a good button and mount it on here the way I would like it, and I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think I can still have plenty of control while shifting my hand over a little bit to hold down the button for any nitrous or boost scramble, whatever it turns out to be. Right now my bump box and everything is on my horn, which I'm going to retain for now until I get some nice buttons that I like on both sides. One for trans brake, one for the bump feature, as well as whether it's boost scramble or nitrous. So I guess we'll try to put it on. I've never taken the steering wheel off before. I doubt it's ever been taken off before. So it might be a pain in the ass. Here is what we are replacing. Old factory Nissan steering wheel, which is actually in really good condition. And the horn button works great. I use it all the time, every single pass, as my bump box. Actually, I have the horn button performing multiple functions, and it may end up performing even more. But right now, in the Holley software, which this is tuned on a Holley HP, so you have very minimal inputs and outputs. So besides all of the inputs and outputs for all the factory stuff, like crank triggers and intake air temp sensor or oil pressure sensor or stuff like that, all the basics, there's only 4 additional inputs, 4 additional outputs. So if you have a lot of things that you need to control, like for boost control and launch control, bump box features, trans brake stuff, you have to get kind of creative with overlapping functions. So I realized there was nothing that I needed the horn button to do. So I was using that as my bump feature, which I do through the Holley. So the Holley pulses a relay, and that interrupts the signal to the trans brake, allowing me to move forward. This allows me to move forward while still on my launch control. But then once I launch, I've let go of the trans brake already. So pulsing that relay doesn't actually do anything anymore. It's just separating a connection that is no longer even being used because the trans brake is released. So I just assigned another function to that same input. So not only does it send the signal for the output for the bump box, but it also can be set up either for boost scramble or the way I have it right now for nitrous. So if I have the nitrous hooked up and the bottle is in there, then I use the bump to move myself forward while I'm on launch control. It's not activating the nitrous because it's not meeting other thresholds. So RPM threshold, I launch at a lower RPM than I spray at. So it'll never actually spray while I'm trying to bump. I mean, unless I exceed the RPM, which would be insane because that would be a really high launch. It would either just spin or do a really gnarly wheelie, which kind of sounds like fun. But for my purposes, it works perfect. It's a bump box, and then as soon as I start moving, I get up above an RPM where the nitrous is enabled. It's a nitrous button, scramble button. So a lot of people complain about the HP not having enough inputs and outputs. You can get pretty clever with it as long as you can layer your functions cleverly. So if anybody has any questions about that, by all means ask. I kind of have fun figuring out how to make all of that stuff work with minimal inputs and outputs. All the stuff that we have running on it right now, and I think I still have an extra output and 2 extra inputs, and it satisfies everything that I need it to do. So works pretty well. You can go a long way on an HP. All right, so back to this thing. It looks pretty simple to get off. It's been a long time since I took it off. So you hold this back a little bit. All right, so I already took this off, but I just placed it on there because you peel this back and there's a bunch of screws and it looks like you have to unscrew a bunch of stuff, but you literally just yank this off. It feels like you're gonna break it, but it's just held in by these like spring clips into those holes. So once you get that off, you can get to that 19 and go ahead and zip that off, and then the fun part starts. And yep, that is 19. God, that was not on there very tight. Safety third. Okay, now that that's off, I have to get the steering wheel off, and it's on there pretty tight. So, and I don't have a steering wheel puller, so I'm gonna get creative. Okay, so I wouldn't recommend this, and usually I wouldn't even admit that I did it, but it worked. So I don't really care. Oh shit, man. It's the right way if it works. All right, so we got the steering wheel off and the old one's sitting over here. So aside from it being a hell of a lot lighter, yeah, the new wheel is a little bit smaller. Not a crazy amount, but I guess the new wheel's outside diameter is basically just about the inside diameter of this wheel. So it's exactly what we were looking for, because the amount that it was in my view was like the thickness of the top of the steering wheel. So the fact that the steering wheel is going to be below it should be just right. But I'm gonna go ahead and put it on, see how it looks. So those 2 pins are gonna basically slide in that slot and give me connectivity for the horn. So that's gonna give me the ability to still use the horn. So and I did check, it does actually spline on, so good job internet on not screwing me. Okay, got the adapter on with the white mark up at the top with the steering wheel straight. Went on easy enough. All right, so we got the base portion of the quick release on. That's the part that stays on there all the time. Everything lined up good, no weird threads, seems like decent hardware. So far so good. Grab the steering wheel. All right, got the steering wheel on. I think we're good to go. I'm gonna hop in there real quick and just see how big of a difference it is, if at all. Looks like this area was turned out to be a little bit too long, so it might have, even though the steering wheel is shorter, it might be sitting it up too high to where the top is the same place that the other one was. I'll take a look. Alright, so out of the two things that we wanted solved, which was having the steering wheel be a little bit lower in my eyesight, and, well, it being removable so that I can get out without having to do the limbo. One of two we got. So the problem was that the steering wheel is a smaller diameter by a little bit. It's actually really comfortable, but it's the column that we put in there, so the adapter plus the quick release setup is a little bit too long. So even though we lost a little bit of diameter in the steering wheel, it's pushed closer to me, and because the angle can't be changed in these, this doesn't have tilt wheel, so it's at an upward angle. So the longer we go, the higher the top of the steering wheel gets. So it kind of compensated. It's exactly where the old steering wheel was, which is doable. I mean, I'd like to, maybe I'll look at getting a different steering wheel. I got a friend who has a Grant steering wheel. See what diameter that is. I think it doesn't come out as much. So like, this angle is fine and everything. If I can get a wheel that is flat, it's not dished like this one is, then that will essentially lower down the top of the steering wheel, because it'll be pushing in further away from me. And because of the angle of the steering shaft, if it goes away from me, it goes down. So we'll see. I mean, I can live with this, so I'm gonna go ahead and get buttons to work with this, a trans brake button and a bump box button, and see how it feels. I think Tanya will actually like it quite a bit because she doesn't have to be so close anymore. This steering wheel actually pushes out a little bit, so I think she'll be comfortable as long as she can reach the brake pedal and the gas pedal good. So we'll see. If she's not comfortable with it, then we'll probably get the other steering wheel sooner than later. But I think overall, it's I think it's good. I'm anxious to drive around, see how it feels, do a pull with it. Really anxious to get those buttons on there, even though I think it's hilarious using the horn. I should probably get a proper button setup. The button that I'm using for my trans brake is a starter button. It's got tons of motion before it actually disables, and I push it all the way down. So when I want to let go, I mean, there's a good amount of stroke before it actually releases the trans brake, and so I need to get some good buttons, and I think it'll help a little bit. So I think that's pretty much it for this one. I'm happy enough with the result. So yeah, again, not any kind of action, no test driving or anything like that, so I'll put some random videos at the end of this one as well. But do me a huge favor and click subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one, which will be a bunch of cutting out of the front. All that metal's coming out. See how much it weighs. All right, thanks.